Um, I'm a big fan of History Unboxed, obviously, but it's really nice to hear when other people get excited about it. I'm going to share some slides because I have some pictures and some things that make us different. And I also like to talk about just hands-on learning in general. So we are going to get that started. Okay. So first of all, a little bit of background about who created this. So Elizabeth, who you see on the left, she's the creator of the company, and she's a second generation homeschooler with a background in living history. She has 7 children, so she knows what it's like to homeschool multiple ages, and she brings that. And then I was a history major, and then I became a public school teacher, and now I am also a homeschool parent, and we are the main creative team for History Unboxed, although we have a whole bunch of people working behind the scenes. And here's what we do. We provide hands-on history education boxes, and they're available as a subscription or a la carte. If you are using your allotment, then it would be a la carte, either a curriculum package or just individual boxes that you find interesting. And right now we have boxes for ancient history, the Middle Ages, and early American history. And I'm really excited to announce publicly for the first time that we are going to be having new boxes coming within the next couple of months. We're going to be extending our Middle Age series and doing early modern world history. And I am working on them now, and I cannot wait to get them out. And our materials are broken down for 5 to 9-year-olds, 10 to 15-year-olds, and 16 and up. Most of the materials in the box will be the same, but we vary our printed materials. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail when I actually show you a box. And since both of us have multiple children, I have 4. Again, she has 7. We know that being able to add on for siblings is really important. So when you purchase a box, you can get as many sibling add-ons as you need for a highly discounted fee. And you get then doubles of all the consumable materials in the box. So why hands-on learning? This is something I'm passionate about. Most of us already know that hands-on learning is good. But basically, hands-on learning helps people remember the facts and helps people to understand what they learn. And it helps because it helps students connect and find meaning with the material. And when you find deeper meaning, then you can retain it. Basically, when it's not boring, you hold on to it better. And then sensory input from all of our senses helps build neural networks in the brain, which helps with retention. But really, most of us like hands-on learning because it's fun, and we want our kids to come to the table and learn, and they're a lot more likely to do that if it's something fun instead of something really dry. So what makes us different than other history options you might have? We're secular, which means that we qualify for allotments. We take a whole world approach. We cover all 7 continents. Well, let me rephrase. We haven't covered Antarctica yet because we're not there in history, but we'll get there. And we make connections globally within the same time period and also between past and present, because many of the cultures we cover are still ongoing today. They haven't just vanished. We consult with experts, and we also prioritize supporting small businesses and, as much as we can, the originating cultures for our craft materials. We also want you to have high quality keepsakes. We don't want you sitting around at the end of each month wondering what you're going to do with a bunch of pieces of cardboard. We want things that you'll be proud to hold on to, or things that will be useful long beyond your history study. Again, our sensory input is really important. And we also want to take history beyond the famous people, the battles, the dates, the things that we kind of associate with history, but don't really draw kids in. Kids want to know, what did people eat? What were their lives like? What were kids like? Did they play games? And those kinds of things. Now, what I mean when I talk about as being secular. We do discuss religion because religion is a major part of world history. So we discuss a variety of world religions. We often include stories from those religions. What makes us secular is that no religion is presented as the truth over any other religion. And so if your family is a family of faith, you can bring that to it. And if you're not, then you're good to go. And in our whole world approach, we're expanding the scope of our children's knowledge through representation, through context, and through representation of marginalized people. So we often take civilizations that might not often be covered in a traditional history study and bring them to life. So we've covered the Scythian people of Asia, the Jomon people of Japan, several West African cultures, Australian Aborigines, and many indigenous peoples in the Americas. Okay, and I mentioned that we connect timelines around the world in our world history boxes. Each box includes a paragraph connecting the civilizations around the world to what else was going on at the same time. Something that I brought up in my own home the other day was that William Shakespeare's play The Tempest was based partially on events that involved colonists going to Jamestown. And my husband's mind was blown that those two things were happening at the same time because we don't think of history in that way. Here you can see my daughter, when she was younger, making a connection between past and present. She was painting a snow snake, which is a game played by many First Nations peoples in the northern half of the United States. I don't know if it was played in Alaska, actually. I think it was more East Coast to the middle. But we were watching a game being played while she was painting and learning about this game that was played hundreds of years ago. We connect that drinks from the past are now popular sodas today. That's from our Mongols box. And that things like the Mayan calendar can be laid right on top of our current calendar and seeing how those things relate. The experts that we consult are people within a culture, if possible, and using peer-reviewed sources, so taking it beyond, a surface internet search and really digging deep for people who have devoted their lives to studying history, and using authentic materials, as I mentioned before. So consulting with a Mohawk woman for our Legend of the Three Sisters garden and having her provide an illustration for it, using authentic Japanese poetry in our Medieval Japan box, and supporting small businesses through our imports, through the companies that help us, and we also employ other homeschool families. So here are just a few of our favorite projects that have come from all over the world, and some examples of what I mean by keepsake quality. So we have a terracotta warrior and a man-made silk kite. This is a mosaic from our Pompeii box. So these are real tiles. It's the actual craft of mosaic, that a professional artist would do. Learning to use a bead loom with reproduction shell beads. Painting a reproduction tile from the Alamo. This is one of my favorites. It's the Bayou Tapestry, and so the kids actually learn how to embroider and get an appreciation for what a work of art the original tapestry is. And playing games of the past. Here you see a period card deck. Our horn artifacts are all authentic horn. I did this project as a kid of making a horn book like colonial children used to study, and mine was cardboard and plastic wrap, and I was really proud of it. But this is so much cooler because it is just like the ones that children were using hundreds of years ago. And the thing that I like about these items is that they get used beyond the lesson, even when it wasn't something that was planned. So here's my daughter dressed up for reenacting, and she is working on her drop spindle and has continued to work on it because she found it so fascinating. And when she was very into the Stone Age, she took the artifacts that she'd made with History Unboxed for the Stone Age culture of the Jomon people and incorporated it into her play space. And she wanted to keep using the bead loom. And this is one of my favorites. It was using the quill that came in our American Revolution box to copy Harry Potter spells because they used quills. So it was able to connect two things that she really liked. And this was a mug that was one of our projects. It's been through the dishwasher more times than I can count. We use it all the time. And it's just a nice reminder every time we look at it of studying. That was St. Augustine. Okay, sensory input. We like to bring taste, smell, touch, hearing. We have musical instruments in many of our boxes. And we take things beyond the textbook. So games, food, making people of the past feel real, giving them copies of the graffiti that was found in Pompeii and drawing the connection that graffiti hasn't really changed much in about the past 2,000 years. It really makes them relatable beyond pictures or words in a textbook. One of the questions that we get a lot is, are we a full curriculum or are we something that has to be done alongside? And that depends on what your goals are. We do, for each box, have a reading list to extend learning if you'd like to have a standalone curriculum. And we have downloadable lesson plans for every box as well that have discussion questions, which are really great if you jot down the answers to those. Those can be really good work samples, and just give you an idea about how to sort of lay it out in a flow that works well as a cohesive lesson. We also maintain Pinterest boards for each topic and have a newsletter for our subscribers that give other ideas to continue your study. And with all of these things, you can go really deep. Whether it's a full curriculum is really going to depend on your grade level and the standards that you're trying to meet. But we do pair well with other history curricula. We've talked with the owners of Torchlight, which is a literature-based curriculum that has a history component, and Build Your Library, which is similar. And both of them feel that our product fits really well with their materials. I have used it side by side with Pin It Maps to round out geography. So it really can be whatever you need it to be. And it can be incorporated into whatever your educational style is. If you're more on the unschooling side, you can open the box and let your kids explore it, or you can tie it into a more formal schooling approach. The other thing that I really enjoy is how easy it is to make history a cross-disciplinary study. So you can connect it to the study of linguistics, the evolution of language and alphabets, and literature, through poetry, through traditional stories. We have tied in science with things like nature study and nature journals based on Lewis and Clark. We've done circuits with Morse code. And obviously geography and art are a big component. And we've done printmaking, and we've even brought in math with things like using a protractor to make a sundial. So seeing that history is not something that is really studied in isolation. All right, so we're getting to the really exciting part. What's in a box? So every box has a full color 8-page magazine that has an overview of the culture and then several articles that go into deeper detail about something interesting or important about that culture. And on the front of the magazine is a sticker that can be used if you have a timeline, or we also have our own timelines. It's very flexible, something that will jog your memory about the culture. And an age-specific coloring sheet. So this is where I said earlier that things vary between the 5 to 9 and the 10 to 15 age range. The coloring sheet is one of those things. And then there's an additional printed item that is age specific. I'll be sharing that with you. Sometimes the stories have a different version for the two different age groups. If it might contain material that could be upsetting for more sensitive kids, then we'll have a slightly less disturbing version. Disturbing is not the right word, but a more mild version for the younger kids. And then the number of items in the box does vary. It always is worth the same amount, but you'll have 1 to 2 high quality crafts. And then depending on the value of those items, 2 or 3 additional items. It could be stories, it could be little souvenirs, it could be smaller craft items. All right, so now I'm going to unbox. And today I'm going to be doing the Scythians. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so you can see a little bit better. Okay. So I like the Scythians. It's one of those cultures that does not get studied much. So I really enjoyed doing the research for this box, and I think it's a lot of fun. So on your box, you'll have a label with what it is, and then a sticker for the ages in the box. If you have siblings of different ages, you'll get both stickers, but this is our 5 to 9 box. And I did get a sibling add-on to show you, so you can see what types of things are duplicated and what things you just get a single version of. So here's the magazine with the sticker and preview of the inside. So in addition to the articles, it has directions for your crafts. There's a further reading list, and then on the back of each one is a map. And in the downloadable lesson plans, there are geography questions to go along with the maps. Our 5 to 9-year-olds also receive a summary sheet that takes each article and breaks it down into language that's a little bit more accessible for younger kids. It's roughly 3rd grade reading level. So some of the younger kids might be able to read it on their own, but it's just a lot more digestible, the big ideas. And then the 5 to 9-year-olds receive a comic. So if you have a sibling add-on, then they each get their own comic page. I also have the 10 to 15-year-old materials here. They get a letter from a time-traveling friend and a more detailed coloring page. Okay, so in this box, they receive a kit to make a felt hat in the style of the Scythians. So you can see this is what the finished product will look like. So it's a really fun craft. It's really unique. And you know, it's something that younger kids can do, but will need help. Older kids are going to be more independent. Okay, and then they also receive a gold leaf kit. So this is, they apply gold leaf to a horse, and this shape is based on an artifact that was found in a Scythian tomb. It was a gold horse in this shape. So they end up with something that looks very authentic and a craft that they probably have not experienced before. Most kids have not done gold leaf. So it's really special. And so each kid would receive their own if you did a sibling add-on. And our enrichment item for this box is licorice root, which was something that the Scythians consumed as they were riding around on the steppes. And so each kid would get their own. All right. So those are our materials. And I'm happy to answer any questions right now. If you have questions about the content of the boxes, you can email me at stephanie@historyunboxed.com. If you have order related questions, then that would go to orders@historyunboxed.com. Okay.
Well, I have one question. If you order
Yeah.
a single box, is there
Yeah.
a way to get the downloadable lesson plans and all the extra stuff, or do you only do that with subscriptions?
So actually, it's anybody who buys either a curriculum package or the individual boxes. Right now, the subscribers are not getting them. We haven't seen as much demand there because they're getting them so spread apart. They tend not to be people using it as a curriculum.
And I'll ask another question. Can you just tell us one more time the different options that you've got for studying time periods so that we can
Oh,
start? Yeah.
yes. So we have ancient history, we have the Middle Ages, and we have early American history up to the Civil War. And then we're going to be adding some additional Middle Age boxes and then moving into early modern history over the coming year. So once they start coming out, it's about a box a month.
And I'll just keep asking you questions because I'm excited to use these for my kids. So, about how long does it take you to get through the material that comes in a box, just roughly?
So we usually take about an hour to get through the coloring page, reading about the initial culture and the first project. And then depending on what the second project is, like usually the big project is included in that time span. And then the other things sort of depend on what those projects are. Some of them go a lot more quickly. And some are more open-ended, but anywhere I would say from 1 to 3 hours for my 5 to 9 group that I have at home.
And then, if you've got littler ones like kindergarten ish age, how do they manage with the boxes?
So 5-year-olds and some even 4-year-olds do really well with the crafts. I mean, maybe not gold leaf because that's kind of delicate, but a lot of them are able to engage. It's just the quality of the product is different. My 3-year-old desperately wants to do the boxes. Now, obviously, she's not absorbing the material. A 4-year-old is not absorbing the material, but they are engaged in it. And it is, you know, for a 5 or 6-year-old who might not be having a deep understanding of, you know, the causes of the American Revolution, what they're learning is that history is fun. And it can be a great starting point to just spark that. And, you know, at that point, you're less about retention and more about developing that love of learning.
I just wanted to ask because you sent me a box and it was, so I have a 4-year-old and I wasn't really expecting her to engage with it because it was Paul Revere and it had some tea from the Boston Tea Party and then it had like making a lantern and what else? Oh, a quill. And oh my goodness, she was so eager to even just watch the other kids do it. And so when I initially looked at the crafts, I thought, oh, those are too hard. She won't be able to do that, but she loved it. And even smelling the tea and being like, oh, this was the tea that was in the water. So I just wanted to ask because I know my little one was totally into it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Elizabeth, the owner, her 4-year-old was so stoked about her terracotta soldier. It was one of the cutest things I've ever seen. She pulled it out of the box and her whole face lit up. And, you know, did she paint it to look exactly like a terracotta warrior the way the 16-year-old did? No, but her love was real.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned the olders too, because I was actually looking at it for my elementary age kids, but I have a 15-year-old and she was like, why isn't my history class this interesting? And so I forgot how exciting it is, even for teenagers, to do something hands-on and to smell and to feel and to touch. So thanks for mentioning the teenagers, because they also, I think, really love these boxes too.
So we do have the 16 and up boxes, and they talk about things that are more mature. So, you know, definitely more the older high school students. You know, sometimes we do talk about things like concubines, but sometimes we just get into more issues and have deeper discussions. And we started doing the 16 and up box actually because we had adults that wanted to do the crafts themselves. So, while we're happy to send them to high school students, they were produced for adults after demand. So I definitely relate to that. It's hard for me sometimes to not take them from my kids.
I totally feel you. I felt the same way. I was like, wait, why did I never get to make a lantern? This isn't fair.
Yeah. My kids were working on soapstone carving last week. And I was like, oh, I could make something really cool if you would just let me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing these boxes
Absolutely.
and just explaining how important hands-on learning is. This is so cool. I don't want to cut you off, but Michael's iPad, any questions before we
No, thank you so much. That was very interesting. Very good.
Oh, I'm so glad you joined us.
Yeah, thanks for coming. And Stephanie, thanks for taking time to tell us all about this. And even bigger thank you for taking time to research and create these boxes. They're just so cool.
My pleasure.
Well, have a great night, everybody, and go enjoy history.
All right, good night.